Thank you so much, Arun. I appreciate it so much. It's great to be here this evening for you and this morning for me. I've shared my screen. I hope that you are able to see it effectively. If not, please let Arun know, and he will hopefully jump in and let me know at any point if there's technical problems today. So we've had several meetings leading up to this. My primary mission in my professional life is to provide value in the moment, but really impact over time. And so in talking to him about how I might provide the most value today to you, but really with the eye towards impacting career development as it's implemented into your schools moving forward, we settled on, for me, what is a unique approach. So yes, I'm going to do the workshop today virtually, but I am going to share with you tools that I believe, with some effort, would allow you to implement a career curriculum into a high school environment across at least 4 grade levels, and having 10 major components that create a curriculum. And so the primary tool for doing this is actually this PowerPoint itself. So while the PowerPoint is quite long, we're not going to go through all 57 slides today. I'm going to orient you to how to use it after I set up the basics of building a career development curriculum for the high school environment. One of the things about being a speaker and a trainer during a pandemic is that I get to track how my hair has grown over time. When I started, my hair was actually shorter than this professional headshot, and now, as an ex-military man, is over my ears and longer than it has ever been before. So I'd just like to recognize that this is a time when we are all coping. I mean, we are all reacting to a situation that no one has lived through. It's been over 100 years with a memory, and that really impacts children as well as us. And so while career development may not be the thing that is most forward in your mind as you think about education in an online environment or education under strict protocols, this is still an opportunity to build long-term capacity. And hopefully today gives you both the motivation and also the tools to build this long-term capacity to give the gift of positive career development to our students. The research on the impact of career development work is pretty clear. Having structured career programs in schools not only increases future career satisfaction, not only results in more positive career development, meaning more attainment of career goals and satisfaction, but it actually has a positive impact on what is happening in school. There are less behavior problems in schools when career development programs are implemented in a structured way, and there is better academic performance in schools when career development is offered in a structured way. Now, I recognize that a few things. One, you may already have a career development program in your school. So if that is the case, this may give you things to think about, ideas on ways to change and grow your program. Or you may be sitting there and not have any career development program in the schools. And this would give you the basic tools walking out of this workshop today. Now, I am not a person that tells people exactly how to do their jobs. There are issues like local context, regional context, cultural context, national context. So this is not a program where I would give you permission to just replicate everything that I say to do. I think that this has to be something that is yours, that you critically think about, and that you adapt heavily to your school environment and the needs of your children. So let's start by talking about career. If you go to any country in the world, there are early life career rites of passage. And the one that I look for the most is child play. If anyone has worked with elementary age children, we know that they play career. We know that they play things like cops and robbers, or teachers and students, or military. For me, I played radio DJ. I grew up in a rural area in a very isolated environment. I had a small transistor radio sitting in my bedroom, and I was able to upgrade with a birthday gift to get one with a tape deck. And so I would record songs. I would literally listen to the radio to get the rhythm of the radio DJ so I could hit record exactly when the next song would start, so that I could create a cassette tape library of songs so that I could pretend to be a radio DJ. Now, obviously that is not my professional life, but something about those early career fantasies has stuck with me as I continue to speak, mostly virtually nowadays, actually all virtually, and I'm even a podcast host on a podcast called Behind the Science of Career Development. Now, we've set up social systems, and I'm thinking of families, communities, and schools that have somehow changed the dynamic, changed the career experience for those children that like to play careers. If you talk to middle schoolers, and especially high schoolers and young adults, in the 21st century world of work, career often equals pressure and uncertainty. Now, the pressure has stayed about the same through this pandemic, but the level of uncertainty for young people has increased greatly. And so if you're a social media consumer, you can certainly find content from my webpage that talks about the mental health needs of people as we do career concern and career development work. What I want from a career development program in a school is I want the time that we spend in classroom focusing on career development to be a release from this pressure. The uncertainty remains, but the uncertainty is something that we have control and maybe even mastery over. But we want our engagement around the process of career development to be serious, but I would say fun. I mean, what is more exciting than figuring out how you want to actualize yourself in a social system like a society and like a world of work? And so if you're sitting there thinking that I might be the instructor or the teacher or the counselor or the principal delivering career development programs, it's good to have a positive mindset that this will be some of the most fun parts of your day as well. Because the person at the front of the room, if they're not having fun, it's almost impossible for fun to be had by the audience, particularly fun doing the task at hand. Okay, so what I'm going to do with the bulk of our beginning time here is to walk you through the basic building blocks of designing a career development program. Now, I would like to ask, I can see when Q&A requests come up. I would ask that Arun, if you would feel comfortable stepping in if I don't see one. I do prefer to answer questions in the context, because if you have to save them to the end, you're either going to forget them or they're not going to be proximal or experience near enough for you to get the most value out of asking that question. So I'm very comfortable with being interrupted as we go along. Again, the most important thing to me today is that you are getting the most value from this experience. So asking a question while we go certainly is an important component of that. So I make 4 assumptions or presuppositions when I'm designing a career development program for a school. Okay. And the four things that I think that it needs to have is it has to be evidence-based, which means there has to be some sort of empirical research that suggests that these interventions and the design of this curriculum is effective. I think it absolutely has to be developmental. And for me, that means two things. It means that using Vygotsky, since we're a bunch of educators, it means that we are aligning the curriculum to the developmental stage or period of the student, and that we are appropriately scaffolding the learning across time. And so you'll see that this is designed for students between the ages of 13 and 19 years of age, and that the different facets of it will grow with the student over time. In the current world of work, it certainly has to be skills focused. And we're going to talk about the skills that are most necessary for the 21st century world of work in a little bit. And as I said from the very top, and I think that this is the most important thing, it has to be engaging. It has to be designed with the student in mind. We have a new field now called user X, user experience, where the experience of someone using a product or a service is predominant to the experience of the person designing or delivering a product or a service. And so we want to go in with a positive mindset, a fun mindset, and an interactive and engaging mindset when we work with students around career development. Now, I'm not saying that teachers, I was a social studies teacher, I'm not saying that teachers don't do that, but we have to differentiate this career development program as a different mental space, a space with a different purpose from the other pedagogy that's going on in our school system. So what do we know from some of the research? This is not a research talk, so I'm not going to give citations, but there is a volume of research, as I said before, showing that having a structured career development program for all students in a high school system will increase student sense of school engagement, will increase student achievement, and will increase student confidence, or in the career field, what we would call self-efficacy. So as a principal or a teacher or a counselor, you should see immediate outcomes in your school system after implementing this program for even a short period of time. And as we get into the actual curriculum that I've built for this presentation, I think that you'll see some of the indicators as to why that is the case. All right, so now I'm going straight to the core components of systems. So the United States and to some extent Europe have been at the forefront over history of developing comprehensive school-based programs. Now in the United States, these comprehensive school-based programs have three facets to them. One is academic, one is personal social development, and the third is career development. So the framework that I'm saying here is borrowing from the American School Counseling Association National Model for School Counseling, just one component of it. It's also borrowing from the Missouri Comprehensive Model, which is where I had the pleasure of working for 8 years in the United States with schools. Missouri is also where comprehensive school guidance was founded. And so what we do when we build a curriculum from this comprehensive perspective is we build it with three things in mind. And so the first is mindsets. The second is the strategies and skills that we want to be permeated throughout our program. These mindsets and these strategies and skills are good if you are doing assessment of this program, are good measures to do in a pre and post or pre-post or really any type of assessment evaluation. And then finally, developmental age level expectations. So we're going to take a look at each of the three of these. So let's start with career development mindsets. And this is really the latest iteration of the Ask a National model for school counseling, is where they started to develop this idea of fostering positive mindsets. They have 8, I believe, total mindsets in their model. I've extracted 3 and changed them a little bit to talk about, it's sort of like the meta. These are the overarching sort of mental behaviors that we want to be fostering in our students across the entire career development curriculum. I would say in many ways across the entire school curriculum. So mindset 1 is understanding that lifelong learning is a key to career success. Now, I believe if you attended the previous masterclass with my good friend, Dr. Marilyn Mays, she was talking about VUCA, which is the idea that the world of work in the future is very volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and the A just slipped out of my mind. It's still early here in Pennsylvania. But so one of the things that we know is that the old model of preparing for a career, making a career decision, accepting a job, and then your employer taking care of you largely throughout the entirety of your lifespan, that is no longer the case, and honestly hasn't been the case for many years. And so whether you're staying with the same employer over time or changing jobs or changing careers over time, there is now an understanding that you have to manage your own career. Your employer's not going to dictate that as much as they used to. And therefore, you're going to have to learn career knowledge and skills for the rest of your life. Now, the positive mindset of this is that's amazing. I wasn't on social media at all 4 years ago. Now I have a globally recognized brand of global career guy. I had to learn about social media. I had to learn how to brand oneself on social media, and I had to learn the technical skills of how to use all of the social media platforms. I feel more energized and younger as a 50-year-old man, having learned recently, than if I would have just stagnated. The second mindset standard is to have a positive attitude towards work and learning. Now, this is the key growth mindset, Carol Dweck's work, growth mindset indicator. And for me, really, it's something that we can demonstrate as educators and professionals to our students. And it's really about building a career that is a part of your life. It's a process of constant building and constant becoming, because we know that it is our attitude and not our circumstances that dictate the quality of our life experience. I'm borrowing and reframing a quote from Viktor Frankl there. But our mindset, our attitude for things greatly impacts our experience of them. And so if we can see work as something that we get to build to represent us, build to take care of us, build to identify us, build to give us a sense of accomplishment, build to give us a sense of giving back to others, then more than half of the battle of living a good life is won. And finally, the third mindset standard is about building our self-confidence and our ability to succeed. And what we see in school systems in the modern age is that there is a lot of hierarchical sorting. Okay, we do it mainly through grades and test scores. And if you think that students aren't aware of where they fall in that hierarchy of grades and test scores within their school system, then you've not, in my opinion, been paying very much attention to students' experience and student development. Career allows us to acknowledge the importance of the academic side of education, but allows us to make students see themselves as unique, and in that uniqueness, all students, regardless of grades, regardless of interest, all students can find a place in the world of work that gives them the opportunity to find dignity, to build a life, and to make a contribution. So those are the career development mindset standards. In my mind, at least 2 or 3 of these would be met in every single career intervention. Every single classroom that you push into, every single group that you run, every single individual meeting that you might have with a student around career development, I would say at least 1 and usually all 3 of these standards should be kept in mind. These are the things that allow career development to play an important role in positive youth development. All right, so now we're going to talk about 8 skills and strategies. Now, I'm not pulling this from anywhere. If you pay attention at all to popular media around career development or career in general, the new sort of language is the 21st century learner or the 21st century career skills. And so I'm using the Kneeling and Kirshner here. What I've done in this model that I've built is I've extracted the 8 that I think need to be present throughout the curriculum with multiple opportunities for students to develop these 8 skills. They also want to know that they're developing these skills so that they can communicate them to adults, to potential employers at universities. And of course, these are critical thinking. And so we'll find opportunities throughout the curriculum to develop critical thinking skills. There is a 3 or 4 across the 4 grade levels. There is an ethical decision-making component, which of course requires great amounts of critical thinking skills. We want people to be able to demonstrate creativity. And so students be doing creative lessons and projects to learn career development things fosters the idea of their own ability to be creative and communicate that into the world of work. Of course, media and technology skills are important. The ability to work independently, the ability to set SMART goals, okay. The ability to adapt to change. And so this is a big one because there's going to be so much chaos and transition in the VUCA world of work. Interpersonal skills and leadership and teamwork skills. So these are all, and I think if you're sitting there at home or at your school, hopefully you're nodding your head right now and thinking there's no downside to fostering these types of skills in students' toolbox. And finally, the last and the most complicated component, and for those of you that are big into curriculum development, this is where we take these ideas and we build a developmental curriculum. And so we're going to be looking at 7 concepts on the left-hand column. Each of those start with a sequential letter of the alphabet. And then we're going to span them across 4 age levels. And so I did developmental ages just because I have a cousin named Dale and it made that acronym, but also because the age that people are in different grades differs culturally. So for me saying age 9 in the United States, that may be different in Qatar or in India or in Thailand. And so I wanted to give some rough developmental age spans where the lifespan development knowledge that we have from research says these are the types of tasks that fit the cognitive, the moral, and the identity development of students. And this is adapted with permission from the Missouri Comprehensive School Counseling Program model that I worked with for 8 years, okay? And so as you can see, excuse me for that slip, as you can see, concept A is to understand self as creating a career plan. And so we sequentially scaffold the different developmental tasks across the age span, starting with assesses strengths and preferences and ending in implementing educational and training plans. B is adapt to work and technology change. C is respect for all workers. And again, I'm not going to read all of these to you. You're going to have this PowerPoint. I actually have these printed off here at home to keep track of my curriculum. You will have this as a follow-up to today's presentation. I think I see a hand raised. Let's see if I can, oh, there's nothing in the Q&A. So if you're raising your hand to ask a question, please reference or please go to the Q&A. Okay. Concept D then is career decision making. E is education and career requirements. And again, you can see each of these scaffolds developmentally across time, ending at the key career development task that a child or that a student needs to accomplish to transition from secondary to post-secondary education, training, or the world of work. And finally, we get to sort of the technical skills in concepts F and G, which are personal skills for work success. And you can see here that I've really used ethical decision-making models as a foundation for that. Other people talk about soft skills or core skills or 21st century skills, which also include technical. And then actual job-seeking skills. Now, the nice thing about focusing on job-seeking skills is that this actually allows students to prepare for applying to university as well. Okay, I'm seeing a couple of Q&As here. Let's see what we have. Okay, can you please, okay, show A and B, and then someone saying the concept is not clear. Okay, so here is A and B. And again, I'm going to be providing this to you all as a PowerPoint. And so basically, this is basics of curriculum and development. You identify key learning concepts that should span the curriculum. And so point 1 is basically 9th grade, grade 9 in the United States, grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12. I think that correlates pretty well with the Indian model. And then the concepts could basically also be seen as broad learning objectives. And so, for example, I'm going to use A as the example here. So the broad learning objective is to understand yourself as a person creating a career plan. So by the end of grade 9 through this curriculum, students should be able to assess their own strengths and preferences when it comes to career development. And so a strength could be something like, I'm good at math, or I'm really good at convincing people to do things. A preference might be a career interest. I've taken a career interest inventory, and I know that I want to do something in the engineering or technical fields. By the end of grade 10, a student should have created a career plan with the knowledge of the educational and training requirements for the career that they are pointed towards. Okay. Part 3 then is by the end of grade 11, they should be preparing for the education and training required for their career plan. And so do they need to go to university? Do they need to go to a technical school? Do they need to learn a skill to enter the job market? And it's my understanding for most students at the schools that I'm talking to today, it'll be preparing for university. And then by the age of 17 to 19, at the end of grade 12, they need to be able to implement this education and training plan. They need to have applied to universities. They need to have gotten accepted. They need to have prepared for life after high school. I hope that cleared it up, okay? And so I have a request to explain F and G once more, okay? So F and G then are the career-specific skills, Okay, so F is personal skills for work success. Oftentimes you'll hear these called soft skills. So how to work in a team, how to make ethical decisions, how to handle workplace conflict. Okay, so what we want to do then is scaffold or build these skills over the course of 4 years. So by the end of grade 9 in this model, all students that do this curriculum should be able to identify situations which require ethical consideration and decision-making in school and work. So there's one example in one of the lessons where a student has to use the restroom during recess, and in walking to the restroom, hears a noise in a classroom and sees another student taking something from a desk that is not theirs. Now, for someone that's age 13 to 15, that is a very real ethical decision-making quandary. To build skills for work success, the right answer isn't an adult telling that student, this is what you should do. To build for work success, that student should use that as an opportunity to learn how to make ethical decisions for themselves. And so the easiest way to do this is to do a case study sort of scenario like the one that I just described. So this is the situation. You can imagine the situation. Let's talk as a group or put students in small groups and talk about how does one make these types of decisions. And there are actually step-by-step models to learn to make ethical decisions. And so if you learn that skill in grade 9, you practice that skill in grade 10, you then demonstrate it in grade 11, then you can actually apply it and think about applying it to all types of decisions in grade 12 and beyond. Looking at G, someone asked me to use this example. Job-seeking skills are how to find work. These are the technical skills such as resume, interviewing, professional communications, teamwork, digital media use. You can see all of them listed here. Okay, we want to start building these skills in grade 9, or actually even before grade 9 if possible, because building these skills in a career context makes for better citizens and better peers in a school system. And so there are many other positive outcomes of building these skills, but learning them within a career development context is a place where a student can really identify the goal and then build from there. And so we want to learn about those skills in grade 9. We want to do some practice of these skills in grade 10. We really want to collect information through this curriculum so that students by grade 11 have a career portfolio. And this can either be a file or a binder, or it can be a website. And again, which is typically called an e-portfolio. There are also portfolio systems. I know a lot of people here are from working in the Middle East. I think the company Cooter has a portfolio system that's used in a lot of Middle Eastern countries. I know in India, I think the biggest company is Mindler.com, which does a career assessment and portfolio system. But again, building this portfolio isn't just an assignment. This is something that they're going to use in their college applications and in their career applications in the future. Let me see. And now I'm being asked, so someone's asking, does this mean that we should have to make vocational courses compulsory in grade 9 to 12? I'm not going to tell you how to run your school. I'm going to present you today with a 10-hour approach for each grade level, 40 hours in total. And implementing a program like this has the positive outcomes that I've already described. So as leaders in your school, I think that the choice is yours. The science is clear. Having a structured career development program does have measurable positive effects. Okay, I've been asked to go back and show D&E again. And I am trying to stay aware of time as well. And so D is career decision making. So we talked before about ethical decision making, which is situating your decision making in a social environment. So ethical decision making has to do about other people. Part D is career decision making, which has to do about you. Now, of course, in a collectivist culture, making decisions about you includes your family and community. But the end point is a personal decision that affects the person. And so we differentiate the two of those. Ethical decisions have to do with social well-being. Career decisions have to do with individual well-being. And again, it just scaffolds through the grade levels. So we always start with learning about. So in grade 9, we would recommend that, and this is in the curriculum, that some sort of strengths activity, identifying your personal strengths, because making a career decision is unique, okay? A 9th grader who is not athletic, and is short, making a career decision to be the center on the professional basketball team, there's not a good fit there between strengths and goals. And so the better a student understands these are my strengths, the more they're able to apply them in school and in their future career. Interests measure what my personality type has a preference for different types of work. And this has the most research in all of career behind it, that personality preferences that start in grade 9 and grow through grade 12 greatly predict the type of work category that you would find satisfying as an adult. And then as we scaffold through, we just continue to build on that self-knowledge to prepare for a future world of work. And then, of course, there's education and career requirements. This is, if I need to go to college, I need to be learning about colleges and what the process of applying and being successful in college. Those types of activities must start in grade 9 to have the greatest level of predicted success. Okay. Okay. So we're getting closer. So those are the 3 components. Then we have lesson plans. And so any teacher has a lesson plan for each class session. Each of the grade levels will now have 10 lesson plans using this. And this is just the way they're organized. And so I always want to be aware of the mindset standards that are being addressed in that lesson. So is it self-confidence? Is it lifelong learning, etc.? I want to say what skills and strategies I'm asking students to use. So from that list of 8 21st century skills, and then the Dale standards are just the standards that we just finished looking at. I have a question. Does internship suitably equip students for job seeking skills? So I would say as a rule, no, not the seeking skills. So first of all, students, in my opinion, if they're in a structured career development program, should have to go through an application process to get an internship of some sort. So they have to submit a resume or an application. They might have to do a short interview. Those 2 things are the career development skills. The internship is going to help them get experience doing a specific type of work and to find out whether that type of work fits them or not. Now, they are going to have experiences at internship that build some of these skills. Okay. So the other piece of that is that an internship isn't going to require all of the skills necessary because, they're going to be seen as interns. They're not going to be given responsibility, and they're not going to have the same sort of role within an organization. I have a question about the Indian system of education has to opt for the stream, and that would determine their career. So the end of class 9 does not apply. Any suggestion? Again, this is why I can't tell you how to do a career program. opting for a stream basically puts a student typically in a career pathway, right? So it might be science or technical stream, or it might be writing and liberal arts stream, or whatever. You still need all of the career and decision-making skills regardless of your stream. And you still need to find out whether or not that's a good fit for you or how to make it a good fit for you. So I think you just need to change the language of the program a little bit, and it would still be effective. It's hard to just take this curriculum and move it back to grades 5, 6, 7, and 8, or 6, 7, 8, and 9, because the tasks that I'm outlining don't fit the cognitive and identity development for that age group. So you might be able to change some of the curriculum to build for that. But I do career development work with people who have had the same job for 20 years, and they still have to learn about themselves. They still have to learn to make effective decisions, and they still have to make those decisions and implement them. Okay. A few more foundational components. Okay. So the Career Development Skills Lab. So I have one skill, what I'm calling a skills lab each year. I just had a question, sorry, that goes before this, so I'll go back and answer that. Experiential-based learning will help grade 9 to 11 to choose their career. Absolutely. But just again, throwing a student into an experience. John Dewey, the famous educational philosopher, said, "We do not learn from experience, we learn from reflection upon experience." And so in my mind, reflection has a pre-contemplation or pre-reflection component, a during the experience component, and then a post-experience component. I know people that have had the same job for 20 years and haven't grown. Don't know how to do the job any better now than they did then, because they weren't looking at it with a positive career mindset to build their own knowledge, to build their own skills, to build their own capacity. Okay, so I think that experiential learning fits very well. I think internship fits very well within the context of a career development program. But if you just throw a student into a situation, then I don't know that they're going to learn everything that they need to know from it. I have a question. What is the difference between vocational and experiential learning? So experiential learning in general is having an experience that is structured to learn around that experience. So largely in the way that I just said. So in a classroom, you can give a group of students, you can put them into 5 groups and give them an activity that is an experience and structure that activity to learn around. So someone's saying learn through that experience. I would say learn around that experience, right? Because again, people, a group of 20 students having the same experience, some will learn from it, some will learn nothing from it, some will learn a little bit from it. If you structure the learning around the experience, more students will learn from it. More students than didn't learn will learn something from it, and far fewer students will learn nothing from it. And so treating experience as learning, using pedagogy around experience is what I would call experiential learning. Vocational learning is just experiential learning with a specific type of experience. And so we often call them internships or co-ops, but it's basically making the experience that we are learning around vocational in nature. So learning how to be a veterinarian by being an intern, veterinary assistant in an office with a veterinarian. So you still use experiential learning techniques, pedagogy, but you've tailored your experience to give them specific career learning. Okay, so what I'm going to show you soon is basically a 40-lesson curriculum with 10 lessons in each of the 4 grade levels or age levels. I'm just giving you this slide to show you how each of the lessons are organized. Okay, One lesson in each of the 4 years is what's called a skills lab. And in my mind, these are practice sessions where you are working directly with students to demonstrate skills and to have them practice skills. And so these, in my mind, should be the most fun, the most engaging, and the most energetic. This one lesson each year out of 10. And so in level 1, the topic that I've chosen is networking, how to interact with other peers. Level 2, it's the elevator pitch, which is a 30-second presentation without notes on your career interest and strengths for that career. Level 3 will focus on job interviewing, and level 4 will focus on the idea of customer service. The best indicator that a skills lab went well is the amount of energy and laughter in the room, in my experience. So this is an example of a curriculum. Across the top, you can see the 4 age levels or grade levels. And on the left side, you can see that each of them are a 10-week curriculum. Each lesson is designed to take between 40 and 60 minutes. With a little bit of ingenuity, you can easily split each lesson into 2 parts if you only have 20 to 30 minutes for your intervention time, for your lesson time. Now, the way this is set up is that these are all hyperlinks. So by clicking on week 2, this actually takes you to the lesson that I've chosen for this particular concept. And so this week's lesson focuses on what are your strengths, and it uses an activity that's called Your 5 Things. You can see that the mindset standards addressed are positive attitude and self-confidence. You'll also notice that I did not put what the 8 skills and strategies are that we would focus on in this lesson. I wanted there to be something for your team or your teachers or your counselors to do to make sure that they were deeply learning the curriculum. And so the expectation would be is that whoever is teaching these curricula would meet together and talk about which of the 8 skills and strategies are used for each lesson. You'll see that the Dale standard that is met is A1. And so again, if you've done any curriculum development or use of curriculum, this model should make very much sense to you. And if you've done any lesson planning, the model should make sense to you because there's always learning objectives or standards. Then there's always materials needed. And this one's called the 5 Things Worksheet, which will be provided to you. There's an essential question for pedagogy and assessment. So what is the important question that's being answered by this lesson? And then I've always included an engagement strategy, which is a tip for the person at the front of the room given the lesson, and I've called them the counselor for this presentation because I'm a counselor, to engage students. And in this example, it's having the counselor share 5 jobs that they've had in their life. Then there's the procedures, and these can be 2 to 10 steps long. And then at the bottom, you'll always see a follow-up. And this is almost everything is recommended to save their worksheet, their 5 Things Worksheet, in a classroom portfolio file for future lessons. Because remember, by grades 11 and 12, they're going to have a structured career plan, and eventually they're going to have a career portfolio. Okay. So that's just an example of one of the lessons. Okay. So in creating, and I think I saw maybe there was a question. So, whoops, let me get to the question. Okay. Would students learn through social action projects as well? Oh, so someone's asking, would students learn through social action projects as well? And would it be a good idea to integrate them into the career development curriculum? Sudha, absolutely. And I'm going to say this many times. This is an example of a curriculum that I created. I want you or the people in your school who are designing this curriculum to use this as a guide, but to make your own. I'm talking to people from schools representing communities of a couple of billion people. I can't predict, and I'm not from India, so I can't predict what these things are going to look like. This is an example of the building blocks of a curriculum. I would be thrilled if I heard from someone 6 months from now that said, we implemented a career development curriculum. It looks nothing like yours, Brian. And I would ask to look at it so that I could see it. Okay. Okay, lots of questions. And again, being aware of time. Some students, even at the age of 13 or 15, don't decide upon their career. That is true. Not sure about what they want to become and they want to pursue, or even if we help them out. They go whichever way their parents suggest. Okay, so it's important to remember that in grade, at 13 to 15 years of age, we are talking about their strengths, their interests, personal skills, ethics, and we are exploring careers. We're not saying you have to choose a career, okay? So gaining self-knowledge is the core of this curriculum. And we have a lesson, we have multiple lessons. We have 2 lessons each year focused on decision-making alone. Ethical decision-making and career decision-making. There's one built into each one. And so this should really be presented at grade 9 and grade 10 in this example. This should really be presented as exploration and information finding, not as pressure. Now, culturally and just in reality, many families pressure their children on what to do for a career. I don't have a good answer on how to address that. What I know is that I have a child in front of me that I'm mandated or wishing to work with. I never want to go against the parent, but I always want to be helpful to the child. And so again, even if they already are being told you must be an engineer, let's look at grade 9 list here. So what is career development? Doesn't matter whether or not you want to be an engineer. What are your strengths? That will apply to what it's like to be an engineer, but just that knowledge alone of your strengths is very helpful to your self-confidence, to your decision-making, to your citizenship. What are your interests? Again, if they take an interest inventory, it may say they want to be something other than an engineer. That's just an opportunity to have a conversation. Practicing skills, always helpful. What is the work in your community? Always helpful. How to explore careers for you. Again, it's not saying you must find a career. It's teaching you how. Your career case study is you writing or doing a project around a career that you might be interested in. Ethics and interpersonal communication, always useful. Okay, there's 3 questions queued up. I'm going to try to do the questions a little bit more quickly. And Arun, maybe you and I can talk about follow-up and maybe even a second session of some sort. So, okay, would it be better to include career development curriculum at 11-12 letter? It is included in 11-12, if I'm understanding the age ranges correctly. So, but 3 is age 16 to 17, which I think is typically 11. I'd like to be corrected if I'm wrong. And age 17 to 19 is typically 11-12, I believe. Career curriculum in the United States, we start at grade 1, at level 1. I believe, and science suggests, that career development learning is a lifelong process. I'm working with people who are retirement age and teaching them career skills because either they want to find something to do at that age, 60-some, or they just want to figure out what to do with their time. It still takes these types of skills. There's no circumstance where knowing how, we're knowing how to do a SMART goal, 3, week 5 of level 3, or I'm sorry, of age 16 to 17, that's always useful. Again, career is the context. These skills, for the most part, are universal, okay? How can we integrate into regular curriculum? I would need to know your curriculum. I have integrated this into regular curriculum, either through, I've done stuff through like SMART Goal is a good thing to do in a science type class. Your career story is a good thing. That would be great, age 17 to 19, week 8. Your career story is a good thing to do in a English language or a writing class. E-portfolio, all the technology ones are good things to do in computer science classes, so on and so forth. Should we have a school counseling and a school curriculum, or career counseling and school curriculum? I mean, again, Dr. Saravanan, I'm not going to tell you how to do your school. My belief is that if you want to, okay, here's my belief. Schooling has become more curriculum-based, more testing-based, and honestly less enjoyable in many ways for students. And what we've seen is some disengagement with students through high school. They're not as invested or as interested personally. Career engagement is one way to get students to make sense and to make meaning out of why they're in school and why they're taking the classes that they're taking. And if they're empowered with skills and choice, they're going to be more engaged in their school than just being there because they have to be and taking the classes because someone told them they need to become an engineer. We want to, another question, we want to follow these methods in teaching the students, but at the same time, we have to complete the course. I'm not sure that I understand that question. I would have to, Kusum Seth, I would have to have you ask the question again. I'm not sure that I understand it. Next question is, in India's society, parents play a major role in career decision. So please address this. I've already addressed that. Again, I've worked a lot. I've worked with many Indian clients, college students here in the United States, and of course, clients from all over the world. It is not my role to go against parent wishes. So I would try to educate parents to some extent or collaborate with parents to some extent. But at the same time, my job is to take care of the child, to take care of the student, to take care of the young adult. And again, I'd be happy to show this curriculum to any parent and say, we are going to be focusing, you can see this is all skills-based. All of this helps your child grow to become a better person and a better adult. Some of these lessons do focus on a specific career, but less than 1 in 5. And in those lessons, we will be learning about your student as they consider a career. Now, we can have them consider a career of their choice for exploration and practice, or if you mandate it, we can have them explore the career that you mandate. And I have to let the parent decide that. How can we streamline the craze? Again, I think, so the question is, how can we streamline the craze of children going for a specific job massively like doctors or engineers? I think, again, I think that this craze, if you will, is based on the perceived prestige of doctors and engineers and the perceived lifestyle prestige, and is being driven by parents' wishes first, and then is being reinforced by school environments. In my mind, we can't have, imagine your community. Imagine the city you live in and everyone is only qualified to be a doctor and an engineer. That wouldn't be able to be a fully functioning community. So I really believe that all work deserves gratitude and dignity. And someone will have to do that work. But when I'm working with the child, I have to take the parent into consideration. Okay, I have a follow-up to the question I didn't understand. I think it means that teachers don't have enough time with students. They have to complete their own. Yeah, so this gets back to the school system, and I hope there's a lot of principals or school leaders on the call. The first decision is this important enough to implement a career program in my school? If that answer is yes, then it's who is the best person in my school to deliver this program. Once that person is identified, or those people are identified, then the question is, how am I providing adequate resources to this person so that they can do this job effectively? So in my world, the school counselor, this is part of their job. They will put, so some schools have like homeroom or activity periods or sort of more open or study lesson periods. And so the school counselor can push into those types of periods and deliver this program, and it's seen as part of their job. If there aren't those open spaces in the schedule, then they would have to coordinate with a teacher where the lesson makes sense or the visit to their program makes sense. If there's not a counselor, then of course a teacher might be asked to do this. And so the leader would have to determine whether or not that means that the teacher should get a period of time to do it, or maybe it's an after school or a before school program. So again, not knowing about a specific school keeps me from answering that question as effectively as I wish that I could. Okay. So this is the matrix of lessons. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I have provided information or lessons for about 65% of these 40 lessons, but not all of them. Again, the task today wasn't to give you a complete curriculum. It was to demonstrate to you how to build a curriculum. The expectation is that whoever is teaching this either is given time or training to learn how to teach this and to really look at the curriculum. I don't know that I think that this is a curriculum where you could just do everything in level 9 exactly as I've said it and it would work. It would work in the United States where I have experience as a school counselor. So I'm going to not go through all of these, but there are 40 slides coming up and I'll just give you some examples. And so what is career development? I've said that this is an open plan. So I'm going to ask the teacher to plan this one. I've already shown you what is your strengths. I just want to give you examples of a couple of different ones. Okay. For the third one in level 9, it's on interest. It's really important that a student takes some sort of interest inventory. Now, again, not being in the country where all of you are at, I know of organizations in the countries, many of the countries on the call, but so in the United States, I would use My Next Move, which is an online interest inventory that the student could print out a report. In India, Mindler is the organization that does the most career work that I am aware of, and they have a very robust assessment system. If you need a paper and pencil one, then you would click on this PDF file at Arizona University, which has an age-appropriate, interesting way for students to figure out and identify what their career interests are. This is an example of a skills level lab. It's a lesson called Network Bingo. Okay. And there is a networking bingo worksheet that will be provided through Arun. The essential question is, what does it take to effectively find common understanding with others? And an engagement strategy is to play upbeat music during bingo time and make them freeze for the teacher to coach them on how to network effectively. Now, if you were to look at the worksheet, and I don't know if bingo is culturally a thing, but it's basically a grid where the student is asked to go find one other student that has a similarity to them. So one of the grids is to find a student that has the same shoe size. Okay, and so it forces them to communicate with many different students in a social setting, just like a networking event. And is an activity-based experiential learning lab, which is why I called it a skills lab. Okay. I saw a hand raised, but I don't see a question in the Q&A. So this one is really based on what is the work in your community. So it helps students figure out the different types of jobs in a community. And this is a brainstorming type of exercise. And so again, the reason I did all of that work on how to build the curriculum before, I don't know culturally if everyone on this call knows what brainstorming is. I don't know if in the community, the local hospital, which is the type of work environment that we focus on in this exercise, is the best place for people to do this type of work. And again, as educators, I'm not going to walk through all 40. I just want to give some sort of highlights and examples. You all are educators, so I am operating under the assumption that you know how something about how curricula are built with standards and something about how a lesson plan can look. Okay. Here's one on exploring careers. You can see that they need the results from the interest assessment from a previous lesson. And they also need a computer with internet access. And so any of the lessons that have this picture in the top right corner, those are the technology lessons. I think all of those would need a computer with internet access. So if students have their own computer, they would need to bring them. If not, then they would need a computer lab for that type of lesson. So what you'll notice here is I'm also mixing up the type of pedagogy, right? We have experiential stuff, right? The skills labs. We have stuff where they're using technology. We have stuff where they're interacting with one another. We have stuff where they're practicing. And so it's not all just classroom lecture-based learning, although there is components of that in some of the lessons. Okay. And again, the basics of your career case study is starting to build a case for yourself of a career. And this first lesson for grade 9 is they're acting like they're a newspaper reporter and that they have to write a compelling career profile for the local paper. And so the recommendation is that you create some sort of handout for the students. I'm not providing one in this case that looks like the front page of a newspaper so that they can give it a headline and write a story about a career that might interest them, Okay. And Arun, I just want to check on time. I think we have about 20 minutes left. So again, this will all be provided. I want to show you as I click forward here, there are some, so there are some lessons where you'll see these stars at the top. It's greatly determined by the country or the system. And so basically I've given you an example of a website resource that I would use in the United States, but I don't know. I know that India has a very structured test-based system of higher education. So I would need someone with cultural knowledge to build this lesson, and that person is not me, okay? Here's another example of university where, again, I give the same sort of prompt. So I am rarely giving you all of the parts of a lesson plan because I don't think it's appropriate for you to just try to copy everything that I'm sharing with you today. I think good pedagogy, good education is the teacher having an investment and a knowledge of what's happening. And so I didn't want to give you everything for fear that you would just copy and that it wouldn't be as effective. And then you can see some are just blank because honestly, partially because of the amount of time I had leading up, knowing that this was what was required for this. I did give a site here with a lesson plan. This is another example. So this link brings you to a more extensive lesson plan from NASA, the space organization in the United States, on how to set SMART goals. So again, just not doing all the work for you. For Skills Lab, for interviewing, again, here is a PDF of a lesson plan from Australia that I think is a great, more in-depth example of a good lesson on how to interview for a job. Okay, so I'm going to leave a little bit of time at the end for questions. So I'm going to skip through about 20 of the lessons and pick up here near the end. So you might have noticed that in the upper right-hand corner of each lesson, I had one of these 7 pictures. Again, these are just another, and this is not required, but another organizational scheme for me to keep track of the different types of lessons. And so if there is a typewriter, then in my mind, I'm thinking this is a lesson, that focuses on individual career planning. It focuses on the student and them making career plans. So them making career decisions, them learning about careers, them creating their own career development portfolio. So you'll see that there are a lot of individual career planning lessons because honestly, that is one of the primary tasks of a career development curriculum. When you see this one with the keys and the lock, that is a skill development, that is a skill development lesson of which there are 4 total, 1 skill development in each of the 4 years of this curriculum. If you see these hands, that is a community and world of work focused curriculum. And so you'll remember I talked about career decision making being about the individual. Community is really about making decisions with other people. So this really focuses on them getting to understand work in communities and really giving dignity and value to all work in the community and understand how it contributes to the greater good. This one with the little scales are the ethics ones. I've already said that the ones with this picture are technology. The ones with this graphic are about decision making. And so career decision making. And then this one with the woman looking out the window are reflect forward, again, thinking about learning as being a reflection on experience and not just the experience. And all 4 reflect forwards are actually the lesson 10 of each of the 4 years. I left this as an open lesson plan because I think a teacher may need to do one of 3 things. They may need to just celebrate. In fact, at the end of year 4, at graduation or nearing graduation, I think it should always be a celebration. They may need to have a lesson to make up missed content that was, maybe school was canceled, or they may need to do a review of what was learned in that particular year. And finally, a few reminders, and I'm going to read these because I think they're very important. Career development is best served when students are engaged and enjoying themselves. So your career development lessons, whether they're 30 minutes to an hour, they should be a fun part of your student's day. We also know that we learn better when we're engaged. Number 2, I left the career development skills and strategies in each lesson, this section, blank, to force the people teaching to engage with this material in a critical, thoughtful way. So since there's something that you actually have to do, that'll prompt you to consider the lessons more thoroughly, and in my hope, change the lessons so that they work better for your school context. That reinforces the idea that each of these lessons is just one way to meet the objectives of the lesson. Please feel free to use different lessons or make your own. If you just Google or do an internet search of a topic, job interview, lesson plan, you're going to find dozens of options. I was just using lesson plans that I've developed in my 20 years working in the schools. Please remember that I'm going to provide a folder to Arun with some of the companion materials, some of the handouts that are required. I was asked to make sure that this wasn't completely technology dependent. And so many of the lessons that I completed will have a handout already provided. And then finally, this approach depends on students having a career portfolio file where assignments are kept over the course of the 4 years. And so this is developmental learning. Each lesson is needed for future lessons. each prior year is needed for the current year, if you're past year 9, of course. And so we want to build something that becomes a professional portfolio and maybe even a website, an e-portfolio with students over time. Whew. So I know that there's a couple of questions. I'm going to try to answer those now. This is my contact information. This bit.ly over here is to get a newsletter that comes out 3 to 4 times a year from me. And then these are all of my social media accounts to follow. And let's take a few more questions. Okay, how to develop a career development program related to the Dales from a normal school curriculum and relate it with community. Dilip Singh, that is a hard one. Again, I don't have enough knowledge of the curriculum that you're using or the community that you live in. And even if you were to tell me those two things, I would need more knowledge than I have from afar. The first step of this process, if you choose to develop a career development curriculum or try to use this one as a starting point, you need to sit down and have a lot of time to go through this thoughtfully, to make notes, to make changes. It's just like developing a curriculum in a school. Now, I recognize that a lot of schools basically use a predetermined curriculum that comes in a manualized form. Arun and I talked about that as a possibility. I mean, this is that is a much bigger task that would not be a volunteer endeavor from me. I develop such curriculums and could develop a curriculum like this for this particular program, but that would have to be paid work because it would be such an extensive process. That process would look like, if I'm developing or anyone is developing the curriculum, there would need to be learning and assessment about the school context, the curriculum being used, the community being served, the types of careers that students are considering, and all of that would be incorporated into an actual curriculum manual. This is just a 90-minute presentation, so I was trying to cover a lot of information to give you a starting point. Hiring or using an internal curriculum development person would be a good first start. Okay. What should be done in regards to make students more focused toward their career objectives? The easy answer to that, Shanaz Khan, is to implement a structured career curriculum. Again, I think so. Some career intervention is better than none, probably. But if it's not structured, it doesn't have a lot of impact. Okay, so think about it. Think about teaching writing, but not having a curriculum. Just going in every 12th day, and whatever you're in the mood to talk about that day, you would teach to the class. And so the class would be getting, and then it's a different teacher each time. And so the class would be getting different perspectives, different levels of instruction, different levels of performance. Without a curriculum structure, it's really hard to learn, to, as Vygotsky would say, scaffold learning. And so a curriculum, in my mind, is very important. This is learning. Making a career choice is a learned skill. Okay. Next question. In India, especially in rural area where numbers of students are more than 50 in a classroom, how can we integrate or indicate skills, or better say identify skills in a child? Okay, so you can give an assessment to, you can put 1,000 students in an auditorium and give them an assessment, and then give them instructions or have a system set up to how to utilize that assessment in the classroom. So do you need to adapt some of these? Possibly. But even a skills lab, like if you have 5 instructors for 1,000 students, you can still put students in groups of 3 or 4 and have them practice things and rotate around the room. My guess is that if you're used to teaching in a classroom with 50 students, then you're very used to adapting curriculum designed for 20 students and finding effective ways to teach it. I think this is a really important thing to say. this is still education. You already know how to teach. So just because this is a new topic doesn't mean the how to do it isn't the same. And so this curriculum, if it were manualized, would look very much like your social studies curriculum or your science curriculum. The content is different. And so the how to, or the how to adapt it, I'm guessing is something that many on this call already know how to do. Next question is how to create an action-oriented mindset. First of all, being engaging, having a purpose, and then coaching students, being encouraging, giving them feedback when they're practicing things, giving them feedback on their resume, giving them feedback on their assignment. Like you having the 3 mindsets as the teacher is the most important thing you could do to create those mindsets in your students. Remember, Albert Bandura, John Krumboltz, all of these learning theorists taught us that the most effective way to learn while the brain is developing is social learning. We learn from our peers. We learn from observing and mimicking the adults in our life. And so if this is a curriculum that the teacher's excited about, if the 3 mindsets are things that the teacher believes and wants to demonstrate, then those mindsets and these skills will be more developed in your students. Someone's asking, is there a structured plan for helping students for choosing their career? This is an example of a structured plan for helping students choose their career. With a caveat, career choice is an ongoing, lifelong process. The reality is that the majority of jobs that these students will hold 10 years from now likely don't exist today. Like, think of technology jobs. The platforms that we use today, most didn't exist 10 years ago. Instagram had no followers or didn't exist. Facebook was in its infancy. LinkedIn, infancy. The code used to program them didn't exist or was in its infancy. That's just one sector. That's just the tech sector. Medical advancements in most categories are refinding new ways every 16 months. So the doctor trained 20 years ago, if they're not kept up to date, doesn't even know the best treatments of today. Okay, look at teaching. Most of us are teaching completely online now. That wasn't a thing before 1990. It didn't exist. And it didn't exist 10 years ago like it does today. So many of the task of work and then the technical job titles, when these students get to the world of work, don't exist, which is why we need to have curriculum to teach these basic career skills. When you go back and go through what I taught today, what I talked about today, what you're going to find is that much of it is learning how to learn and learning how to interact with other people in a positive way. Those are the 2 things that our students need the most. Okay. Next question, what is a way to support the average students for career development? I'm going to guess that means students that aren't performing highly academically. And this is the beauty of doing career development work. And I talked about this at the beginning. So your students know to some extent where they fit in the academic hierarchy in their school. They know who the top students are, they know who the bottom students are, and they know where they fit in between. Career gives them an opportunity to be unique because it communicates this. It doesn't matter what your grades are as much as what your preferences are. It doesn't matter what your test scores are as much as it matters what you're interested in. Because, and again, I'll use medicine as an example. The highest performing students can become neurosurgeons or other high prestige professions. The moderately high performing students can become general practitioners, podiatrists, and other types of medical professionals. The ones in the high middle can become anesthesiologists and nurse practitioners and rehabilitation therapists. The one in the middle and lower They can become radiological technicians or medical aides. And so the vector, the direction that you are pointed because of your strengths and because of your interest, your personality, there's a stop along the way as far as your academic ability, that entire pathway to the top. So your school performance just sort of dictates how far and how hard it will get for you to get far on that pathway. But you take any job category, and there's multiple stops along the way. I'll give you another example. Mechanical engineer is a high prestige position. My nephew, I'm a first generation college student, went to a technical school to get an associate's degree and is an engineer manager, which means he does AutoCAD and design and planning for the mechanical engineers, but he still gets to work in the engineering field. Okay. Next question. I'm going to keep answering questions. I'm aware. I think we're scheduled to end in 1 minute. Arun, do you want to do a close? And I'm happy to spend another 10 minutes answering any questions that haven't been answered. I'd like to check in with you now, though.
Absolutely fine, sir. I think if you are okay with giving us more time, I think everyone will be happy.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so the next question then is how can we help? And I'm gonna quit share screen so you all can see my face. Although I don't know how much you want to see my face, but so the next question is how can we help students with career queries virtually? What activities can be beneficial for them? So again, there are tons of online options. I do want to self-disclose. I'm on an advisory board for a company in India that I've mentioned twice, which is Mindler.com. One of the owners of the company is an academic, Dr. Narendra Chadha from New Delhi University, and I've known him for many years. But there are programs in India, such as this one. But for online delivery, that's an example of one that I'm familiar with in India. But my guess is that there are other online options all over the world. And again, if you have some knowledge, you can just Google it. Like if you Google career interest inventory or career interest assessment, you'll find many options. Now, you would want someone with some knowledge of career to look at them and make sure that they are quality assessments, right? There are online portfolio programs. Again, I mentioned Mindler. Kuder, Kuder, is one that is very active in the Middle East, to my knowledge. There's another one in the United States called Naviance, but there are many other sort of career portfolio systems. And so the problem in the modern age is overwhelmness from overabundance. There are too many options with too many different qualities, like assessment of quality. And so it is helpful to have someone that has some that has done some research or has some knowledge help you select. But it's just not fair for me to say this is the one you should use because I don't know anything about your school or your context. You're welcome. A couple of thank you for this. Yes, lovely session. Thank you. And so the rest of these seem to be thank yous. And so I think that it comes across when I speak. I really believe in career development. I'm a mental health professional as well as I was a school counselor. One of the greatest factors in improving the mental health and the well-being of a human of any age, high school and beyond, is their satisfaction with a career and that they have a job. The impacts of unemployment or financial stress from underemployment on mental health and well-being are drastic and they are bad. And so if we can help as many people have a job that gives them enough money and that pays them enough for a good lifestyle, that does more for a person's mental health and well-being than anything I can do as their therapist in a session. And schools are the place to do this because of the developmental age, but they're also the place to do this because it's the one place where we can gather whole communities together of a certain age and give them a curriculum that was built for them. Universities, I would say, come in second place, but we all know that that the choice to use career services in universities is often quite low compared to a school curriculum, a secondary school curriculum, where you can deliver it to more than 90% of the students if you do it in a curricular way. Okay. I think that's all I have today, Arun.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hutchison. I think it's been an absolute pleasure. And you know, I really don't know. I think it's been tremendous help that you have done. For all the participants in this room, we would share that, you know, I would share the presentation and the complete deck with you over the weekend, right?
And the handouts as well. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt, but and the handouts as well.
Right. So we would try and do it for most of you on your Google Drive. For others, we might need some external help, and we'll reach out to you. You know, I would basically close this session, hoping to have you again, right? And yeah, hoping to have you again, Dr. Hutchison, and you know, I'm sure there is tremendous learning that school leaders, teachers, and counselors have had from today's session, and hopefully, you know, you would hear it from us of how the program has been implemented and what has been the experience at all levels. Yes, for those of you who are wanting to reach out to Dr. Hutchison for curriculum for their respective schools, just drop me a line and I'll be happy to connect and take this forward. We have uploaded the complete schedule for September, right? For those of you who are asking about virtual queries, please understand, you know, the whole intent of starting of NPOC as a social initiative has been that. So every week you get to meet two practicing industry professionals or from academia. They would help you understand the nuances of a career or a stream of careers, right? And that's about it. Thank you so much again, Dr. Hutchison, and
thank you, everyone.
Also to all the participants. See you next time, and let's make best use. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.